So hearty welcome to the team from OECD who are going to be presenting this report. And as I mentioned to you, madam, that Center for Public Policy was started about more than a decade back. In fact, Professor Chiranjeev Sen is here. He was the founder member of the Center for Public Policy. It was started with support from UNDP and Government of India to be a think tank to the government and also to build capacities in government. So consequent on that, we also started a postgraduate program in public policy and then a doctoral program in public policy subsequently. We also do quite a lot of training programs, short duration training programs for the officers. And we also are very closely engaged with government. So when we heard about this, we are quite happy to host this talk here. And we have this seminar series of public policy. So we thought we can use this as a platform to listen to you about the economic report prepared by the OECD. And we are also glad to know that you'll be speaking about it in India for the first time in IIM Bangalore.
It's great to be in front of an academic audience again. I've been with the OECD as the chief economist only since October. And the 8 years before that, I was a professor at Brandeis University. I was teaching in the master's program there. It's a program in economics, finance, and business, and it's an international program. In my classroom, 70% of the students are foreign. And of course, I had many students from India. So it's really great to be back in a classroom again. Why is the OECD involved with India? Some of you might know the OECD, of course, stands for the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's based in Paris, and it had its origin in a organization that was just European, and maybe the United States, back in the 60s. And so it's often called the rich man's club, because historically, the only countries that were involved and came to Paris to talk with each other were rich countries. But with the new Secretary General, Angel Gurria, he opened up the OECD world to the world and wanted to get involved with a much larger group of countries. And one of the avenues to do that is the G20, where, of course, India plays an important role. So in 2007, was the first survey of India. But we're basically an opportunity, a platform for countries to come together and talk to each other about their experiences and their best practices. This oil price collapse in 50% drop in nominal terms, in dollar terms, from 100 to 50 and even actually a little bit below that. Is this due to supply or due to demand? It's a very important question. It's both, but the relative magnitudes is an important question for whether or not you think it's going to persist. In 1986 was the last time that Saudi Arabia tried to induce other producers to cut their output. In other words, they tried to induce the shale producers, which are the US producers, to try to get them out of the marketplace. So if we think about our theory of industrial organization, there's a monopolist and there's a fringe of producers. If the monopolist can get the fringe out of the market, then they can raise their price again. So mostly due to a demand slowdown, so that the decline is much more like the 2008 experience. We're trying to disentangle this because it's going to be very important for what we think is going on with the global economy. The implications of a $50 price decline looks like in terms of its impact on GDP for a variety of countries, including India. So India is both involved actually on the export and the import side, more on the import side, but you export some refined products. So we have something called including products, oil including products, so it takes account of that refinery stuff. And although India is not the one to have the greatest benefit, it is almost the biggest benefit. It's got 3.3% of GDP added just on arithmetic of a $50 decline in the price of oil. Now, how much does that translate into in dollar terms? And this is all in dollars. It's $68 billion. simply from an arithmetic standpoint, India could be looking really good in terms of GDP over the next 2 years if, in fact, this oil price decline persists for that amount of time. You're growing, but there are challenges. So here's a basic outline of what the issues are. It's important to improve the macroeconomic framework, and I'm going to talk a minute about inflation and a minute about the fiscal stance. It's important to boost competitiveness. Now, there's both a real side component to that, having to do with the structural aspects of labor laws, land acquisition, and things of that nature, judicial system, infrastructure. But it is also the case that there's some financial aspects to that competitiveness as well. Capital formation, which is in the solid line, that's investment, does not look good. Investment is the foundation for future growth. It also represents an employment, a basis for employment and a basis for capital investment. And so we worry a lot about that investment line. We're also very worried about exports. That's the dotted line, and you can see that they've gone negative. So having inflation expectations come down in the same kind of way as the actual CPI, this represents inflation expectations anchoring the actual CPI. The expectation is still higher than actual CPI, which means there's still work to do to bring these two together, but the central bank has been effective in bringing inflation expectations down. So let me turn now to the second major macroeconomic issue that I wanted to address, which was public deficit and debt. So the top panel gives you an idea of how the fiscal deficit has evolved over the years. And as you can see, the gray component, which is the state fiscal deficit, has narrowed just a little bit, whereas the blue component, which is the federal, has started to come down. It went up and then has started to come down. Overall, though, we're still looking at a deficit that's more than 7%. A 7% deficit consolidated between the states and the federal, that's a very large deficit. It is putting a burden on the financial markets, and it's leading to an increase in the debt. Let me just talk for a minute about competitiveness, because that is going to feed into the story about manufacturing. So I already told you that exports were soft and were not a basis for growth. Now, on the one hand, the reason might be that competitiveness has deteriorated. The period, the panel on the right is the real effective exchange rate and the nominal effective exchange rate. So it's, in other words, how costly are all of India's goods around the world. And the increase there is an appreciation of the real effective rupee. Now, you might not think that the rupee is appreciating, because against the dollar alone, it is not. But against all of your trading partners, if you put them together, laying the groundwork for the discussion that's going to go in more detail in a minute. I'm going to talk about the infrastructure in particular. Labor force and health we'll be talking about with our other speakers. So infrastructure, quality, and uncertainty about building it is a real barrier. Financing of infrastructure is also a challenge in comparison, and most of it's public. And then if we look at the stock market for India, which is in the right panel, the stock market also is actually small. So neither of these two mechanisms, standard ways of financing infrastructure, really are going to be the avenue that India is going to take.